Chapter 1. The Meeting. The city of Florence breathed with a kind of timeless magic. It was a place where cobblestone streets whispered secrets of the past, where every corner carried the scent of history, and every stone was a witness to centuries of longing. Amidst this backdrop, Elena wandered through the Uffizi Gallery, her notebook clutched against her chest. She was not looking for love. She had come from London to study art, to chase her dream of becoming a restorer, breathing life back into fading masterpieces. Love, she believed, was a distraction, something meant for others. And then, as if fate itself had brushed its hand across the canvas of her life, she met Daniel. He was standing in front of Botticelli's The Birth of Venus, sketchbook in hand. His gaze was not fixed on the goddess, but on the interplay of colors, the way light seemed to ripple across the painting. Elena noticed the intensity in his eyes, the way he lost himself in details. Their first words were simple, an exchange about art, a casual comment about the impossibility of capturing such beauty on paper. But beneath those words, a thread was spun, delicate yet unbreakable. Chapter 2. The Growing Bond. Days turned into weeks, and the two found themselves inseparable. They met in cafes by the Arno, exchanged laughter beneath the Ponte Vecchio, and whispered dreams in hidden courtyards. Daniel was an American photographer, traveling through Europe with no real destination, guided only by his heart and his lens. He told Elena that her presence gave meaning to his wandering. She told him that his passion for the fleeting moments of life reminded her why art existed. Their love was quiet but fierce, like a flame that refused to bow to the wind. But as the summer waned, the shadow of time grew longer. Daniel's visa was nearing its end. His return to New York loomed over them like an approaching storm. Chapter 3. The Separation. The night before his departure, they stood by the river. The moon painted silver streaks across the water, and Florence seemed to hold its breath. "Come with me," Daniel whispered, his voice trembling. Elena's heart ached. "I can't. My life is here. My studies, my work. This is who I am." Tears blurred her vision, but she didn't let them fall. He kissed her as though trying to memorize her, to carve her soul into his own. And then he left, disappearing into the distance with a promise that felt too fragile to hold. Chapter 4. Across the Ocean. Letters became their lifeline. Elena wrote of her days in Florence, of paintings she touched, of colors she revived. Daniel sent photographs, of New York streets glowing after rain, of strangers whose faces reminded him of her. But time is a cruel thief. Calls were missed, letters delayed. Life crept in with its demands, and slowly the warmth of their love was tested by distance. Elena wondered if love could survive oceans. Daniel wondered if memories were enough to build a future. Chapter 5. The Return. 2 years later, fate intervened once more. Daniel returned to Florence, not as a traveler, but as a man who had realized that no city, no photograph, no fleeting adventure could replace the home he had found in Elena's eyes. He found her in the same gallery where they had first met. She was standing before Botticelli again, her hand gently tracing the outline of Venus on her sketchpad. "Elena," he said softly. Her eyes widened, filling with both disbelief and longing. Time had changed them, but the bond remained untouched. Chapter 6. Silence between us. The first weeks after Daniel's return were filled with an almost unbearable sweetness. They walked the streets of Florence as though no time had passed, as though the years of longing were only a dream they had woken from. Yet, beneath the laughter and stolen kisses, silence grew. Elena had changed. The girl who once dreamed with wide eyes was now a woman shaped by discipline, by her art, by solitude. Daniel too had changed. The man who once wandered freely had now seen too much of the world to remain still. Sometimes, as they sat together in quiet cafes, their eyes would meet and ask the unspoken question: can love survive the scars of absence? Chapter 7. The Temptation of Distance. Daniel received an offer from a prestigious gallery in New York, a chance to exhibit his photographs, to step into the career he had always dreamed of. "Elena," He said one evening, his voice low, "They want me back in New York. Just for 6 months, but it could change everything." Her heart clenched. Again the shadow of departure loomed over them. "I cannot follow you," she whispered. "My work is here. My life is here." The same crossroads as before, yet heavier, sharper. For the first time, Elena wondered if love was not enough, if passion could withstand the weight of reality. Chapter 8. Letters Unwritten. This time, there were no promises. No vows to write every day. No illusions that distance was kind. Daniel left quietly, and Elena remained in Florence, burying herself in work. She restored paintings late into the night, her hands steady but her heart unmoored. In New York, Daniel poured himself into his art. His photographs grew darker, sharper, filled with shadows that spoke of loss. He was celebrated, yet empty. Applauded, yet alone. Letters were drafted but never sent. Words that might have healed were swallowed by fear, by pride, by the quiet cruelty of time. Chapter 9. The Chance Encounter. 3 years passed. Elena traveled to Paris for an exhibition of restored Renaissance works. She moved among the crowd in silence, her eyes drawn to the vibrant photographs displayed in the next hall. She froze. The photographs were Daniel's. She recognized his touch instantly. The way he captured fleeting glances, the way shadows spoke louder than words. And then, across the room, their eyes met. For a moment, the years melted away. Paris became Florence. Strangers became the past, and the distance between them was nothing at all. Chapter 10. The Choice. They walked along the Seine, silent at first, then speaking of everything and nothing. The city glowed with lights, as though celebrating their reunion. "Elena," Daniel said at last, "I cannot keep running from you. I've built a life, but it means nothing without you in it. I don't care where. I don't care how, but I want you. Always." Her eyes filled with tears. She thought of the years of longing, of nights spent staring at empty letters, of the pain of waiting. And yet, her heart still knew his name. "Then stay," she whispered. "Wherever we are, stay." And for the first time, neither of them feared the silence. Chapter 11. Shadows of the Past. Though Paris had brought them back together, their reunion was fragile. Elena and Daniel began to weave their lives once more, but now with threads frayed by years of absence. Daniel rented a small studio overlooking Montmartre. He filled it with canvases of photographs, while Elena spent her days at the Louvre, working on delicate restorations. At night, they returned to each other, their conversations stretching until dawn. Yet sometimes, when Elena looked into Daniel's eyes, she saw the years they had lost. The loneliness he had endured, the paths she had walked without him. Love was strong, but time had left its mark. Chapter 12. Another Presence. Into this fragile balance entered Camille, a French art curator who admired Daniel's work. She was elegant, confident, and spoke of the world with the ease of someone who believed she could bend it to her will. Elena noticed the way Camille looked at Daniel, with admiration, perhaps with more. And though Daniel was devoted, Elena felt the old fear rising. What if distance was not measured in miles, but in hearts drifting apart? Chapter 13. Fractures. One evening, after a gallery opening, Elena confronted Daniel. "You belong in this world," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The lights, the fame, the admiration. And I belong in silence, among forgotten paintings." Daniel took her hands. "You are wrong. The world means nothing if you are not in it." But her doubt grew, not from lack of love, but from the weight of two lives pulling in different directions. Chapter 14. The Storm. Paris turned gray with autumn rain. Days grew colder, and with them, the cracks between Elena and Daniel widened. Daniel received another offer, this time from Tokyo, a chance to exhibit his work internationally. Elena was offered a position in Florence, leading a groundbreaking restoration project. The choice was brutal: to follow one another and sacrifice their own dreams, or to remain true to themselves and risk losing each other once again. Chapter 15. A Night by the River. They met by the Seine, where their story had restarted. The river glistened under the street lamps, carrying reflections of 1,000 lights. Elena, Daniel said softly, we can't keep choosing between love and life. If we do, we'll lose both. She looked at him, her eyes shimmering with tears. Then what do we do? He took her hand, pressing it against his heart. We stop running from the truth. Love isn't about choosing one dream over another. It's about building one together. For the first time, they saw not the distance, not the years lost, but the future waiting to be written. Chapter 16. Between Two Worlds. Winter settled over Paris, cloaking the city in silver frost. Elena walked the quiet corridors of the Louvre, her hands wrapped in thin gloves, her mind restless. Each day she worked with fragments of old masterpieces, restoring them piece by piece. And each day she wondered if love could be restored the same way. Daniel, meanwhile, drowned in preparations for his Tokyo exhibition. Critics praised his vision. Journalists admired his words, but none of it silenced the emptiness that stirred whenever he thought of leaving Elena behind. They lived under one roof, yet the distance between them seemed sometimes greater than the ocean that once separated them. Chapter 17. Camille's Question. At a reception one evening, Camille approached Elena with a glass of wine in hand. You are brave, she said softly, her eyes sharp. Elena frowned. Brave? To love a man who belongs to the world. To stand still while he moves in every direction. Her words lingered like poison. Elena returned home that night with Camille's voice echoing in her mind, a whisper she could not silence. Chapter 18. The Letter. One night, Daniel found Elena's notebook lying open. Inside, among sketches of paintings, was a letter never sent. If love means letting you go, I will. But I do not know if I can survive it twice. The words tore at him. He realized then that their love was not threatened by Camille, nor by distance, but by fear. Fear of losing each other, fear of sacrifice, fear of choosing wrong. Chapter 19. Florence again. Elena was invited back to Florence for the restoration of a hidden chapel painting. The city that had given her Daniel now called her home again. She hesitated to tell him, afraid it would be the end. When she finally confessed, Daniel simply said, Florence was where I found you. If it is where your heart belongs, then it is where I must follow. For the first time, he chose love not as an interruption to his life, but as its center. Chapter 20. A New Beginning. Spring bloomed in Florence. The city breathed with the same timeless magic it always had, but for Elena and Daniel it was no longer a place of beginnings and farewells. They built a life between gallery halls and studios, between restoration and photography, between silence and laughter. There were no more promises of forever, only the decision, renewed each day, to stay. And that, they learned, was love's true endurance, not in grand declarations, but in the quiet choice to remain, even when the world tried to pull them apart. Epilogue. Whispers of forever. Years passed gently, like pages turned in a book too precious to close. Florence remained their home, though the world often called for them. Daniel's photographs traveled to galleries across continents. Elena's hands gave new life to works thought lost to time. But always, they returned to each other. There were arguments, of course, nights when Daniel's restlessness clashed with Elena's quiet devotion, mornings when ambition pulled them in different directions. Yet, the fear that once haunted them, the fear of distance, of silence, of loss, no longer ruled their love. One evening, decades later, they stood once more in the Uffizi Gallery. Botticelli's Birth of Venus glowed before them, unchanged, eternal. Elena leaned on Daniel's arm, her hair now silver, her eyes still carrying the light of their youth. Do you remember? She whispered. How could I forget? He replied, his voice rough with age yet steady with love. They smiled, not as two lovers clinging to fleeting passion, but as two souls who had chosen, again and again, to stay. And as they left the gallery hand in hand, Florence whispered around them, carrying their story into eternity. A story not of distance, but of devotion.